Welcome to the Introduction to American Law, Unit 3, Lesson 2. In this lesson, we will be discussing the Great Tort Debate. This is an issue of modern importance, and really, all it is a debate between tort reform versus tort expansion. What this means is that in modern times, if we look at the tort system, some people see it as this system that has run rampant throughout society, and it really instills bad values in society. Tort reform argues that we should change the current tort system that we have. We should cut back on some specific rules and eliminate some altogether in an attempt to cut back on the amount of tort lawsuits brought forth. However, other people see tort law as a system that has really moved our society forward. It has taken dangerous products out of the marketplace. It has protected consumers. It has deterred individuals from committing wrongful acts against one another. So this is one intense debate in the modern era that we will discuss in this lesson. Let us begin by talking about tort reform and a couple of arguments for why we should change our modern tort system. One argument is the tort tax. Basically, this idea of a tort tax is that products in modern times have an increased cost because companies need to protect themselves from lawsuits. So they spread out the cost that lawyers take for lawsuits, or that they need to pay out in awards, and that cost gets spread out across all of the consumers who buy their products. Additionally, some products, there are unnecessary safety features added on just so that these companies can show that they're trying to act with care, even though these safety features essentially don't do much in the end. So as a result of companies needing to protect themselves from lawsuits or adding unnecessary safety features, the cost to the consumer increases because of this looking out for themselves. One excellent example of this is defensive medicine. The idea of defensive medicine is that doctors order tests that they know they probably don't need, but they're just trying to cover their backs. For instance, if you hurt your arm and the doctor knows that it's not a broken bone, they still order an x-ray because they want to be for sure that your bone is not broken so that they can't get sued in the end for advising you wrong or misdiagnosing you when you actually do have a broken bone. In the end, this raises healthcare costs for the end consumer. Another argument for why we should pursue tort reform in society is the argument of social degradation. This argument basically says that the idea behind the tort system, this if you wrong me then I can sue you, or this someone else is responsible for my suffering mindset, when this spreads throughout society, it really fosters poor values. Essentially, this argument states that blaming others for your problems is the mindset that we're spreading to our kids instead of taking responsibility for our problems. For instance, in the case of a woman who got her coffee from McDonald's, the famously dangerously hot coffee case, you've probably read about it, then rather than taking responsibility for her problems, when she took off the lid of the coffee that she was holding between her legs and spilled it on herself, causing burns, she blamed McDonald's for her problems and sued them. In the end, McDonald's originally was set to pay out $2.7 million in punitive damages and $160,000 in compensatory damages for that lady. This is just one example of how tort law may foster poor values in society. People end up looking to sue individuals instead of work it out with them. These are the two main arguments for tort reform in society. Now we will move into arguments regarding tort expansion. These arguments state that tort law has been effective in improving society in the past, so we should keep it as a central piece of our current system and even expand it if possible. Some examples of how tort law has improved society is primarily removing dangerous products from the marketplace and making the workplace safer for individuals. If you watch as much TV as I do, you've probably seen plenty of commercials that say, if you or a loved one have taken this medicine and have experienced these negative effects, then call these lawyers because you may be entitled to financial compensation. Those commercials are a product of the tort system. Specific companies have been shown to have put dangerous products unknowingly or knowingly out into the marketplace, and individuals have been negatively affected by that. So in response, these companies must compensate individuals that they have negatively affected. Another commercial that you've probably seen is talking about asbestos and mesothelioma. Asbestos is a product that was present in many workplaces and was shown to cause mesothelioma or other problems for their workers, and specific companies had covered up the negative effects associated with asbestos, so their workers were negatively affected because of this. In response, these companies were required to compensate their workers for the harm that they caused them. Finally, in our famous dangerously hot coffee case, even if it may seem a little crazy, then the result of this lawsuit was that McDonald's lowered the temperature of its coffee by 20 degrees to make it no longer dangerously hot, as was determined by the courts. So even in little ways like that, tort law has the potential to improve society. Another argument for tort law is that it's provided victims with necessary compensation. This really in the end boils down to fairness. For instance, if I'm driving down the road and I'm texting and I'm not paying attention and I accidentally hit a pedestrian at a stoplight when I was supposed to stop and they were crossing the crosswalk, it really is only fair for me to provide that individual with compensation for the harm that I have caused them. And it's really as simple as that. A wrong should be made right, and damages caused to individuals should be repaid. It's just the basic sense of fairness that our legal system was founded on. So in modern times, there are both arguments for tort reform and tort expansion. This is a debate that is currently going on, and you might feel more inclined to one side of the debate versus the other. In the end, we really don't know what's going to happen with our tort system.